Following the events of the previous episode, we enter the final arc of Stargate's first season. SG-1 arrives in a destroyed facility. The team spreads out to investigate. Captain Carter and Dr. Jackson find a laboratory, while Colonel O'Neill and Tiak find an ominous sign. The symbol is a warning for the Goa'uld. It means that this location is not safe and that the surface is entirely radioactive, probably to make sure that the original inhabitants won't survive. Daniel figures out that this lab was for studying alien artifacts, but the Colonel interrupts him, telling him to leave immediately without any words of complaint, which naturally disgruntles the archaeologist. While the captain follows the order, Dr. Jackson takes the opportunity to grab a bunch of stuff. To his surprise, he accidentally activates some sort of mirror and begins to investigate. Realizing that this can't be a mirror, he touches it and something happens. Afterwards, the archaeologist runs back to the gate to ask SG-1 for help in carrying the mirror, but he can't find them anywhere.
Oh, I really hate it when this happens.
He dials back to Earth, steps through the gate, but is welcomed by a fully armed unit aiming at him. Daniel identifies himself as a member of SG-1, which is when Hammond arrives. He immediately questions Jackson where he got the SG-1 identification code from, but very quickly sends him into a holding cell. On the way, the doctor keeps screaming that he's not a Goa'uld and needs to speak to Jack O'Neill, to which a soldier merely replies that he probably means General O'Neill, after which Daniel is sedated against his will. He wakes up in his cell without anyone around. The door opens and a familiar face appears, Catherine Langford. Of course, Daniel recognizes her, but she has no idea who he is. Jackson tries to explain that he just left the base a few hours ago and that he got the code by being a member of SG-1, but she denies the fact and insists on him never having set foot into Giant Mountain. Dr. Langford explains to him that while they use Daniel's research to figure out how the Stargate operates, the two of them never worked together, as 2 years ago, Dr. Jackson rather rudely refused the offer to join the program, leaving our poor archaeologist feeling like he's being gaslighted. When demanding to see Captain Carter, Catherine tells him that Samantha Carter is not part of the military and instead works as an astrophysicist for the government. Daniel is brought before General Jack O'Neill, who demands answers about the Goa'uld and tells him to make it quick.
Look, I'm a member of SG-1 with you, Captain Carter, and Teal'c. Where's Teal'c? The big guy, gold emblem in his head, gold in his stomach, you can't miss him.
Get this man out of here, now.
Dr. Langford tries to persuade the general to wait, which is when Dr. Jackson drops some bombs himself. He confronts Jack with the death of Charlie and with the mission to Abydos with the intention of blowing up a nuke there, making the commanding officer more than just a little curious. Before they can continue, Dr. Carter comes in for a report and states that Philadelphia and Washington have been lost. Daniel, still confused as to what's even happening, asks them to fill him in. They show him a map of Earth with the red spaces symbolizing radioactive or destroyed landmarks, and holy crap, the majority of the United Kingdom is just gone and the rest of Europe doesn't look much better. An emergency news report tells him that the Goa'uld arrived in motherships around 4 days ago. All military efforts resulted in a one-sided loss, and all attempts for surrender or communication have been ignored. Escape is also impossible as the Goa'uld dialed the Earth Stargate and keep the gate blocked. Yep, this is a Doomsday situation, alright. Dr. Jackson tells Catherine about everything in the last mission, but stops in shock when the military intends to send a nuclear bomb to Chulak, an address which Daniel gave them in order to contact and recruit Tiak. Jackson tries to convince General O'Neill that this is a horrible idea and that the Jafar themselves are not at fault here. However, the general ignores him under the pretense that the current death toll on Earth is estimated to be 1.5 billion. Dr. Carter theorizes that our poor Daniel has moved to an alternate reality, of which, theoretically, a near infinite amount could exist. Catherine is sure that it was the mirror that caused him to switch realities, but before they can finish the conversation, Earth is attacked once again. Meanwhile, Daniel takes the opportunity to look up what happened to Dr. Jackson in this reality, soon realizing that his counterpart is most likely lying dead in Egypt somewhere, as that country is among the red zones. Suddenly, disaster approaches. The president tries to make a desperate attempt to take a flight to the Stargate, but is shot down on the way. Unfortunately, by tracking the airplane, the Goa'uld find Cheyenne Mountain and begin to land on top of it, which means the invasion is about to begin. The alternate Stargate command tries to work out a plan to stop the incoming Jafar, but as the talks go on, everyone in the room begins to realize that this is a battle that cannot be won. So, they decide to do whatever they can to buy time for the civilians, doctors, and politicians to evacuate. The military personnel prepare their suicide mission. Dr. Carter and Dr. Langford showed Dr. Jackson a deep space transmission that they received 3 months ago. This Earth couldn't decipher it, but that's because the message is in ancient Egyptian and nobody learned to speak it aloud on Abydos. Together, the three decipher the message and receive a gate address, the homeworld or perhaps the main headquarters of the Goa'uld who attacks. Luckily, the gate shuts off and the SGC tries to dial out immediately, but the Goa'uld are quicker to dial and manage to block the Tauri Stargate once more. Samantha says that based on previous blocking attempts, the maximum amount of time a Stargate wormhole can be held open is 38 minutes, a few minutes give or take. At the same time, the Jafar breach the base. General O'Neill and the soldiers are easily overwhelmed and are forced to retreat, which is when we see that none other than Tiak himself is leading the assault on Earth, and he looks pissed. Back in the conference room, General O'Neill orders to send a nuke to the Goa'uld headquarters as soon as possible, but Daniel, by showing him a tape of SG-1 exploring the destroyed facility, finally manages to convince him not to blow everything up for once. Despite the stressful tension, he promises the general that there is only one way to go forward. Daniel must get back to the mirror with the information of where the Goa'uld attack comes from, so that he can stop the attack that will undoubtedly happen in our reality as well. O'Neill, knowing that whatever they do, it will be the last thing they will do, hesitantly agrees. In order to buy some time, Jack, after hearing the story of him convincing Tiak to join the Tauri, and after giving his farewells to his fiancée. Oh shit! Sam and Jack are married in this reality? Whatever. Confronts the Jafar leader armed with nothing more than a video camera. Lieutenant Colonel Hammond gives his final speech, orders for the self-destruct to blow 2 minutes after the gate shuts off, and then proceeds to march to his death. Meanwhile, Jack's attempt to convince Tiak seems to actually work, but...
We received word from my home world. You sent a weapon of destruction there through your Stargate. My people, my family are dead.
In the final minutes before annihilation, the scientist trio prepares to move. Samantha grabs the remote mirror device which she forgot in the conference room. Catherine stays behind as the gate operator, and Daniel moves into position. Unluckily, the final line of defense falls, as Colonel Hammond stands alone with a jammed weapon against an unending amount of never-ending enemies. Dr. Carter herself is caught in the conference room by Jafar, but refusing to surrender, she pulls a pin on a grenade and blows herself up. The 38 minutes are over, the gate shuts down, and Catherine actually manages to begin the dialing sequence before being killed herself. In that same moment, Tiak storms the gate room. The Stargate activates and Dr. Jackson makes a run for it, but is shot by the first prime along the way. The injured Daniel arrives on the other side, and he finds the mirror still connected to his old reality. On the other side, SG-1 is leading a search and rescue for him. They find him shouting as he's repeating the warning, "They are coming." And that was the 19th episode of the first season of Stargate SG-1. Damn, that was dark, and a banger of an episode to kick the finale off. Unsurprisingly, this is one of my favorite episodes of the first season. Before saying anything else, in my opinion, just go and watch it yourself. I don't think you'll regret it. With that in mind, I hope you had an enjoyable time watching, and I may see you next time with another episode of Stargate SG-1. Until then, have a good one.